Hello ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time to join us here today. My name is Dr. Jeff Lloyd and I'm responsible for research and development at Nisus Corporation. I've had about 15 years of research experience looking at preservatives and pest control products, specifically in the borate area. And I'm a biochemist and mycologist by background. What we're going to be looking at today specifically is a number of different topic areas. I'll touch on why I think you should be interested in understanding a little bit more about fungi. I'll talk about fungi in buildings and their specific requirements. I'll talk about the characteristics of different construction materials. I'll look at the potential health effects of fungi in buildings. I'll look at water in buildings and the problems associated with water, and I'll look at treatment options, and then finally we'll have some conclusions which hopefully we'll all be able to agree on. Well, I'm sure you're all a little bit familiar with mould. The media has done a very good job over the last few years of really scaring everybody about mould, especially the so-called toxic black mould or Stachybotrys. We've seen headlines like these, black plague mould and mould is your apartment building infected, and then pictures of people wearing gas masks, etc. All very scary, I'm sure. That brings us on to the topics of why I think you should be interested in understanding a little bit more about fungi. I've listed them here. First and foremost, there is a genuine need for services and expertise in this area. People are very concerned about a real potential problem in this area. And that takes us on to the next point. If you know a little bit about the problems in this particular area, if you understand a little bit about this, it will enable you to differentiate your homes, your buildings, from your competitors, so you have the opportunity to differentiate your materials. The next point on there is a very important one, and that's the ability to add a brand new profit centre. By differentiating your products, and by understanding a bit more about some of the options in this area, there might be an additional service that you can charge your customers for. You might be able to give them an opportunity of an optional upgrade, for example. The next point on my list, though, is also very important, and that's to protect your customers and your employees. You wouldn't want to place any of your new homeowners in a position where it may harm their health, and I'm sure you wouldn't want to do that with your employees either. If you were to do that, especially if you were to do it through negligence or do it on purpose, then that's something where you might be open to legal redress. And that's the final reason why I think you should be interested in this subject area. I think you would want to protect your business for the long term, and especially protect your business from potential lawsuits. Builders can be liable for both negligence and fraud, and this is very important when we look at mould and fungi growing in buildings. Incorrect treatments of any form, such as incorrect termite pre-treatments, for example, can get builders into trouble. If builders, for example, use illegal products that are not properly registered for that application with the EPA, if builders misapply products or don't do treatments properly when they're supposed to, if treatments are done on wet soil, for example, such as in the traditional soil poisoning type termite pre-treatment approaches, or if products are not applied at proper label rate. All of these things the builder can potentially be held accountable for. Moving on, many builders don't know about the end cut requirement. First of all, the building code does require pressure-treated sill plate go into homes. Whenever you cut a piece of pressure-treated sill plate, or whenever you drill through a piece of pressure-treated sill plate to install plumbing pipes, for example, you have to apply a preservative onto the end of that cut end to treat the exposed, untreated wood that you've exposed by making that cut. If you don't apply a preservative to that end cut situation on a sill plate, that house technically is not built to code, and that opens you, the builder, up to some potential liabilities. And finally, on here, a couple of points. Leaks and mouldy homes is a big issue here. And that brings us on to the final one. Most builders like to offer a 1 or 2 year warranty on any new homes that they've built. However, if it can be proven that the builder has carried out either negligence or fraud in doing any of those areas or any of those things above that, then that warranty is basically extended for the life of the structure. And there are not many builders that I know that want to offer a warranty on a home for the life of the building, for ad infinitum, as it were. Okay, so let's move on into the specific subject matter at hand, and let's look specifically at what are fungi, or what is a fungus. Well, I'll talk you through basically what they are, and I'll give you a technical definition in case you need it for contract purposes or whatever. First of all, fungi are living organisms. They eat very much like an animal. They have to eat dead stuff like an animal, like human beings do, but they grow very much like a plant. Plants, on the other hand, they can actually make their own food using sunlight. Fungi are very similar to plants, but they can't do that. They can't make their own food from sunlight, so they have to eat dead stuff. And the posh way of saying that, or the technical way of saying that, is to say that they're saprophytes or that they're saprophytic. That just means that they eat dead stuff. However, occasionally, what fungi eat is us, and we're not dead yet, we're alive, and when they're using us as a food source, then that type of growth is called parasitic growth, and those organisms are then deemed to be parasites. And very occasionally, when fungi use us as a food source, they kill us in the process of using us as a food source. So that means that they become pathogenic in their nature then, as opposed to just being parasitic. Normally, however, and luckily for us, fungi are very, very helpful to us. They do a whole host of useful things. Without fungi, every dead leaf in the world, every dead tree would be piled up probably as high as the moon by now, just over the millions of years that plants have been growing. It's fungi that recycle all of those materials and break them down for us. Very, very helpful. Fungi also give us antibiotics to help fight off harmful infections, and probably most importantly, the Ascomycete fungi, a yeast organism called Saccharomyces cerevisiae, gives us both beer and wine. So we have a lot to be thankful for of the fungi. Finally, on this slide, just to finish off, I'll give you a technical description of what a fungus is, just so you have that in case you need it. Fungi are achlorophyllous containing, cellulose containing organisms. What that means, achlorophyllous, means they don't have any chlorophyll. So like plants have the green colour that helps them to use sunlight and produce sugar, fungi do not have that pigment, they have no chlorophyll. But like plants, they do have cellulose in them. So if you take an organism that has cellulose but doesn't have chlorophyll, then by definition that's a fungi. And just to finish off, they normally grow in a filamentous type mode, which means they have kind of lots of strands and filaments, but that's not always the case. Okay, let's have a look at some of the different types of fungi, and don't worry, there won't be a test on this list at the end. Different types of fungi, we can classify different types of fungi based on what they are. That's kind of like talking about human beings and say, this gentleman is an African American and this gentleman is a Caucasian. We can see that those people would be different, and we can classify them based on those differences. We can do the same with fungi. And here we can see those types of classifications of fungi. Now, we're not interested in most of these. The myxomycetes, the slime molds, we're not interested in those. And within the Eumycota, we're actually only interested in the Ascomycetes, the Deuteromycetes, and the Basidiomycetes as the main 3 types of fungi that grow within homes. But it doesn't do us a lot of good trying to classify organisms in this way. I think it's much more interesting to classify things, including people, for example, by what they do rather than what they are. So, for example, it's much more interesting and more relevant for us to know if this gentleman here is a builder or, for example, they're an attorney. We can draw probably better conclusions as to our type of relationships with those individuals based on what they do rather than what they are.